Hello, in today's video we're going to be going over how to add a secondary VTO to an existing intercom setup. Now we're going to be following the previous video that we did with the single VTH and single VTO setup, which is going to be found in our wiki. We're going to be using the same credentials and same IP addresses of those devices. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to want to boot up our secondary VTO, and in this setup we're going to be using a VTO 2111D. So let's go ahead and log into the web interface, and let's initialize that VTO. Okay, and just to simplify everything, we're going to be using the same password as all the devices we've been using, which is admin123. No email in this setup, but I do recommend setting up an email in case the customer or anybody forgets the password. Now, once we initialize the device, we're going to go in and log into the device. And we're going to be setting this up as a Subvto. So to do that, we need to go first into network settings. We need to go into the SIP server, and we need to make sure that the SIP server is disabled. Once that's disabled, we need to enter the IP address of the master VTO. In this case, let's go ahead and refresh that. It's going to be our VTO 02202F, which is ending in 108. So we'll type that in now. The username and password, these are the devices, the current device's username and password, which is the username is going to be the room number, the VTO number, and SIP server username and password, this is going to be the SIP server. So if you guys remember correctly, for the one key config, once you set up a password for the master VTO, it's going to use the exact same password for its own SIP server password. In this case, it's admin123. So we'll go ahead and type that in. Now the device will reboot after disabling SIP server. So we're going to have to wait until it reboots. And the most critical thing is that we're going to need to have the VTO, we need to give it its own unique VTO number. We're going to be using number 8002 since the master is 8001. So in the meantime, while the VTO is rebooting, I like going in and logging into the master VTO. And in the master VTO, we need to add the VTO that we're about to set up as the sub. And to do that, you need to go to household settings. We need to go to VTO number management, and we need to add that secondary VTO. By default, you will not see this information here. By default, you're going to see 8001. Maybe you'll see the local IP address, which is the local host IP address. If not, manually type in the master. But to add a secondary, you want to go and click on the bottom left, add number. This is asking you for the VTO number. So it's going to be 8002. Register password, leave alone, do not touch that. IP address, this is going to be the IP address of the sub. So 192.168.1.110. Username is admin. Password, we set up admin123. So once we have that entry on our master, once we set it up on the sub, we should be good to go. So the VTO is rebooting now, as you can hear the tamper alarm. We're going to wait for that to stop squealing at us, and we'll finish setting up the secondary VTO. Okay, now that the device is fully booted, we're going to do a refresh. Log back into the Subvto. Now in the Subvto, what we need to do is we need to change the VTO number. So currently it's 8001, same as the master, which is going to be confusing for the VTH. So you want to go to local setup. And after disabling the SIP server, the VTO number should no longer be grayed out. So you can go ahead and change that to 8002. Hit confirm. And that should save the settings. Now, anytime you want to confirm that any of the devices are online and running, you want to go to the master VTO and go to status. Here, once you go into the status, you'll see any device that is connected over the SIP. A good troubleshooting step is if you ever see a device that either doesn't show up the entry at all, that means it's either not on the local network at all, or the SIP server settings aren't pointing to the master VTO. So this is a good troubleshooting section for you to go in and check. But since all the devices are online, we know that everything is working. So now what we need to do is we need to add the device for the monitoring, setup for the VTH. So we're going to go over and swap over to the VTH. Let's go ahead and full screen that. Okay, so on the VTH itself, with the one key config setup that we did last time, if we go to monitor, we can see the main VTO. We can go ahead and view it. And there I am. So what we need to do is we want to add the Subvto onto the monitor as well. Since we've already added it to the SIP server, if we press the button on the Subvto, you'll see that the call will go through. Currently my room is dark, so we'll go ahead and end that. But we do want to add the monitor. So we want to go to click and hold the settings to get into the configurations settings. We're going to type in the password that we set up previously, hit OK. Now we want to go to VTO config. Now you can see the master VTO is there, but we do not have a Subvto. There's two ways of adding it. We can either manually enter the information here, or the easier way is go to search device. The VTO will search for all the devices. You can see the secondary VTO. Let's go ahead and hit add. We don't want to override the first entry, so we want to click on the arrow next. And we'll enter the information here. Now there's nothing here we really need to do. If you do want to give it a nickname, you can go ahead and change that there and set up Subvto. Give that name. Leave everything default except for state. State you want to turn on. Oops. There you go. Search IP. It's going to be the IP address there. And password. You want to type in admin123. Or whatever password you initialized it with. Hit OK. That's going to set successfully. We want to go to VTO config and just assure that the status is online. Once you know that status is online, we want to go home, monitor, and you should now see the Subvto there. Click on it just to double check that you can see the video. There I am. You can do a two-way talk. Go ahead and end that before it starts the audio feedback. So there it is. That is how you add a secondary VTO to an existing Intercom Kit setup.